Hello and welcome to Afternoons with Ash Black. I'm happy that you all joined us today. We are shooting live from the BKAT studios, having conversations that matter with members of our community that are spreading joy through the sheer virtue of their works. We're happy to talk to these folks today and have conversations with them that are sometimes poignant and questions that might catch them off guard. But ultimately, our goal today is to have a wholesome conversation with a member of our community and share it with you, our audience. I appreciate you very much for joining me today, and I hope that you will continue to join us as we have conversations with folks that live right here in our own backyard, hometown heroes. Thank you. JZ Murdock, writer, director, author. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
I moved to Bremerton about 6 years ago from Suquamish, where I lived for about 16 years raising my kids out in the woods. Wanted to get more involved with people. I was in IT and retired from IT in 2016. So I wanted to move here, and I bought a bunch of camera equipment. I thought I'd switch from writing to making films. I'd been on Kelly Hughes, who's helping him on his sets to do some of his films, and got pretty used to it. So I thought, maybe I could do this. So I gave it a shot. It's been going pretty good.
So you've been a Washington native your entire life?
Yeah, I've lived other places, but yeah, I was born in Tacoma a long time ago.
What does it mean to you to be a filmmaker here in your area, making films that inspire people ultimately?
I like the community here. It's nice to work with local filmmakers wherever you are. I worked out of Viacom cable access TV for a while in Seattle, and that was a really interesting time when cable was really starting up. Kelly and I had put on a Slash Night monthly horror thing with local indie filmmakers would show up once a month, and so we got to know some of them that way. A great group of really talented people. So I think it adds a lot, and I think we need more art always, and it seems to be growing here.
So let's talk a little bit about your accomplishments over the course of your career. You're obviously a filmmaker, but you're also a writer as well. Why don't you tell my audience a little bit about some of the accomplishments you've had in your life?
Well, I got my degree from Western Washington University up in Bellingham in psychology. The last year, it was getting kind of dry, so I started to get a minor in writing. So I took fiction writing, which led me to playwriting, which got me selected for a year of screenwriting. And so some of the stories I wrote then and screenplay over the 80s, I sent them out trying to get published and stuff. Eventually got published and put in a collection and got some books published, and that's kind of how that went.
You brought some images of some of the publications that you've put out there. Why don't you tell us a little bit about these publications? Death
of Heaven is a kind of an epic sci-fi horror novel. It encompasses so much: the beginning of the Earth, millions of years out in space, going up to maybe the end of the Earth. That seemed to be pretty well received. And then over the years, that was 2014, over the years I published other stories and novellas and stuff, and I put those all in my last two books that came out a year ago. Anthology of Evil 1 and 2, stories that had been in other anthologies and in magazines and stuff. I really wanted to get into filmmaking. I've been writing screenplays and trying to get those sold for so long. It occurred to me, especially after talking to some people who had done it, just make a movie.
Just make a movie.
Just do it. Just get a camera, go out there and do it. We've got companies, studios who have made movies on cell phones, just shot on a cell phone. We've got kids doing that, and some of them are really good. A 10-year-old turning out a short movie. That's pretty impressive.
So let's talk about that for a second. I've seen some of these films over the course of the years. I remember, as a matter of fact, probably 20 years ago now, there was a cell phone commercial that featured a film that you could watch online that was filmed entirely on a cell phone. What do you think it means that more people are now finding access to this technology and competing with auteurs that we're familiar with, names, like Steven Spielberg, are now up for grabs from just anybody. Do you feel that that's welcome competition in this market, or do you think that the technology is leading us on a downward path as far as film and cinematography is going? Do you think that it's deteriorating?
I think it makes room for that, but I think it's a good thing overall. I think Spielberg would agree with that. He started out making films as a kid.
On a Super 8,
yeah.
I understand.
So, well, I don't know if they had Super 8. I think he was using like 8mm in the beginning.
8mm.
Yeah.
I apologize. Maybe I'm confused.
I think he's older than me.
Title.
But yeah, some of these kids are turning out good stuff. You're not going to get the same quality with kids as you get with a filmmaker who studied it and knows what he's doing. It's going to be deeper. Superficially, it may look really good and it may come off well, and that's fine, because just get a camera and start shooting. Think it out. You don't even have to do that. You can just shoot things and do it in the editing. So as long as they're doing it, I think creating art is good. It stimulates the mind, gets other people thinking, and if you have a message in it, that gets out to people.
I think this is an important question too, and we will be visiting this question with many of our guests, but it's the question of what truly makes an object, or an expression for that matter, artistic. Some would say that an item that is considered art has an intrinsic value, and if valued, therefore, and distributed, that makes it not only art, but the person who created it, an art maker. What do you think that says to the world when a person can film something cheaply and throw it out there, whether it be seen or not? The question is it art? We have Banksy out there spray painting walls, and we only really create a value for it when we find out that it was actually Banksy that spray painted it.
Right.
And in most cases, he will only admit to ownership if it becomes a public exhibition of art. The moment anyone tries to possess that art, it's disowned, if you will. So I think we have lots of questions about what is art, and a lot of exploration to do in regards to that. Speaking of self-made films and the motivation for those to get out there and do it, you were recently a part of a festival here in Bremerton, the West Sound Film Festival. They were very accommodating with yourself and myself as well, having us come out there and interview some of their guests. Why don't you tell me a little bit about your experience with that and seeing some of the other local filmmakers present their work?
Wow, I think it's a blast seeing other filmmakers when some of them show up, some of them are too far away and maybe don't show up, but some very interesting, especially young people, turning out stuff that I would like to see what they're going to turn out in the future. It was a good experience. I thought Amy Camp, who directed it, did a really good job on it. It's growing and getting better every year. So the films I saw were, wow, some of them were very poignant. My film, Private Rebel's Bolero, is a filmic poem and historical documentary, and they followed my film with a documentary called Soldier, which just blew you away.
That was the documentary by Justin Zimmerman,
right?
Submitted this year at West Sound's Film Festival. I saw some really fantastic films out there, including yours. So why don't we talk about your film a little bit? Private Rebel's Bolero.
Right.
It's a film that follows a musical composition that was created by Private Maurice Bolero in 1922. I'm
not sure when he wrote it after the war. I took the conceit that what if he was a soldier in World War I, and he wanted to be a soldier, but like Hemingway, he couldn't because of a medical issue. So Hemingway drove ambulances, Ravel drove trucks.
Supply trucks.
Up to the front. So he saw things. But I had this thought, back in 2014, I wrote this long poem about what if he was in the trench one day, which he may have been. I mean, if I were him, I might have got down in the trench. If you're driving to them, I want to get down and see what's going on.
Absolutely.
What if he wrote it in his head one day or one night and decided to get a flute and go out into no man's land between the German and the French. This is all about the French. The French trench lines in no man's land and played, and what if people joined in with him and they all stopped fighting and just came together, both sides. So that's basically what the song was about, and it details that and the feelings of the men and how that situation ended. And I couldn't get anybody to publish it, and I couldn't get anybody to, I wanted to do it as an animation. I couldn't get anybody to do that. They wanted, one animator said, I'll do it for $250,000.
$250,000.
Yeah, and I wanted something, just simple line drawing, be kind of cool and minimalist. And so I just put it away. And then COVID hit. And I went through a bad case of COVID in February 2020 and long COVID through that year. So when I was coming out of that, I wanted to get back into it. And my son got me playing video games just so I could go sit at my desk and do something at the desk. I just couldn't handle sitting at the desk. So after a while, I'm playing Fallout 4 for like 8 hours a day. And he's cracking up about it. But then one day I thought, okay, it's time to do something. I'm still not feeling that great. I had shot a film with actors the year before called Gumdrop, a short horror, which did okay at the film festival. How can I do something in this condition now? And I thought, well, I could take that poem, and I wanted to do something video-wise with it, and I'll just stick it in the video editing software, the text, and do something. And so the first day I sat for about an hour before I was like climbing out of my skin, and I couldn't do any more. And after about 4 weeks, I was sitting there pretty much all day editing for about 6 months to get it done. And this is after some years of researching it, looking for photos and finding the public domain music and stuff like that. So at that point, I started doing more research and learning more about public domain stuff. And it just kind of developed. I mean, so many times, I can't remember who said this, but they said, just show up if you want to do something. Just start it. And once you start it, it just starts to build, and then it sort of bugs you that, well, this could be better or something. And so that's what I did. And I had to figure out, how does the video and the photos I put in fit the narrative of the text? And then when I put the music in, that changed the text, altered the pictures to fit everything. And it just, this symbiosis between those three elements, until I was like, wow, this poem has gotten much better because of the video. And to make it fit the music, which it didn't, I had to sort of rearrange things.
Sure.
It was a lot of effort, but it was really rewarding when I got done with it. It was something I had never imagined.
There was a substantial amount of editing involved, especially with all of the photos and archival footage that you included. I imagine the editing process must have been miserable, but...
About 4 months in, I wanted to quit. I just got up, walked away. I can't take it anymore. There's so much like really picky stuff trying to make things fit perfectly. Plus, all the video and pictures are black and white. And in the film, I used AI coloring in the video software.
I noticed there was some colorization in the smoke in certain scenes.
Yeah, and like there was one poster, French post-war poster, that when I saw it on screen, as big as it was, I was completely blown away by how good it looked. And I'd spent like 3 days trying to get that thing to look good. And a lot of effort just in the quality of an individual frame, not to mention the timing and synchronizing and stuff like that. So in the end, I was pretty happy. Like I said, after about 4 months, I was ready to give up. And it's just get back there. You just got to finish it. Just do it.
Just show up.
Shut up and do it. And so I finally hit a point where I don't think I'm capable of doing anything else. I actually taxed my video editor in what it could do. It just finally went, I can't do anymore. I was adding so many different layers of complexity to it. And it's something else you just have to find a workaround, and I did.
Would it surprise you that an editor failed to show up to work that day?
Wow.
But seriously...
I never really got tired of the music, though, which I guess says something for Ravel.
Which is a slow crescendo that evolves from one instrument to another until a final orchestration involving all instruments and drums, a drum beat that persists throughout the entire song that leads to this crescendo. And I feel like it's perfectly descriptive of maybe what an individual might go through being down in those trenches or just leaving the experience of a war like that behind. What do you think that does to an individual?
Yeah, and that's part of what the whole film's about, and part of what the poem was about. They hate each other. There's actually situations where both sides, people may have heard of this, like during Christmas or something, the Germans were singing Christmas songs in German, and then the other side started singing it, and maybe they were throwing things back and forth, and
then they next day
everything changed back to normal.
I've heard that story, yes.
Yeah, so kind of what I did with this is they all get together, play this song, everybody goes back, but I dwell on what's their mental and emotional state at this point, because they're like, I hated these guys and I'm going to kill them, but I'm feeling, what is this feeling? It's like, I think it's humanity I'm feeling. And it's just details how horrible war is overall. So,
early reviews of your film were really good, and it was well received at the West Sound Film Festival. Why don't you tell me a little bit about the reception that you've received after submitting this film? I understand across the world, correct?
Oh, right. There was an interesting thing happened. I submitted it to a film festival in, I think it was Kiev in Ukraine, and they emailed me and said that they were going to, this was my horror film actually, Gumdrop. They said they made an official selection. And I wrote back and I said, wow, thanks a lot, I appreciate it. And they're like, yeah, no problem. And that day, they got invaded by Russia. And I wrote them back and I said, look, I heard what's going on, I'm just really sorry, and be safe and stuff. And they wrote back and just said, thank you. A couple days later, I had submitted Private Ravel's Bolero to a film festival in Russia. I thought, I'm going to do this on purpose because of what's going on. I didn't like what was going on. And I was sure they would just outright, no, we can't do this. This is, like, Putin would get mad at us. And they accepted it. They took it in as official selection. I can't remember if I got an award on that one. But I thought that was amazing. So I wrote back to the first one in Ukraine and I told them that. I said, I can only see this as their statement to their leadership that they were going to select this for their festival. I don't know if they actually showed it, but I thought the festival in Ukraine needed to know it, and I still haven't heard back from them.
But unarguably, Private Ravel's Bolero is a film that is a statement against war and the ravages that it can have on an individual's mind. For you, I feel that this has created a sense of this film being an anti-war statement from your heart. And I've tossed around the word a few times with you about this being a film that may inspire activism. Any way you look at it, the folks that have seen it have understood the message that you're trying to spread. What do you think it means to be an activist in our community, and how would you define activism for an individual?
Well, it's like somebody had said, you don't need to go out and be in the streets all the time, every day. It's just sometimes an attitude that you share with others. So you got to speak up and say what you think is right or wrong, but I think we also still have to remain citizens of our country. And if you really don't like it that much, there's other places you can go. But you got to speak up. And it doesn't have to be a big deal. It can be just something you say to somebody one time during a day. But I think that's a form of activism. It's good to get out in the streets sometimes. I don't think we need violence. I mean, that's the whole anti-war thing, is I don't think we need violence. If there's war, you need to go deal with it and protect. You don't need to do it for profit.
JZ, I have two final questions for you today. In your own words, for my audience, I would like to ask you first, what is special about this community that you live in?
I first came over to Bremerton in 12th grade from Tacoma. I was dating somebody over here. And I liked Tacoma a lot better back then. It was kind of rough over here. So I've kind of avoided Bremerton all my life and ended up moving here when I did, not expecting a lot. And my kids ended up moving here for a while with me too, my adult children for a while. And we all were like, wow, Bremerton's really nice. I really like it here. And hooking up with people in the arts community, there's a lot of artists here. And even in Gorst, I heard there's a lot of artists live out there. And I think that's important, especially during times of war, civil unrest, or corporate profits moving over from Seattle to Bremerton. I think the art helps soften that and change it a bit,
In your own words, what ways could we as a community, do you see, improve? How could we improve our community?
I think some of that's already going on, some of the restructuring downtown that's going on. I think if we keep an eye out for art too, though, that's always going to help. Just be part of your community, really. That's good activism, not just about political things, but your own, where you live, your own place.
Thank you, JZ.
Sure.
We appreciate you coming on here.
Thanks for asking me on.
JZ Murdock, an author, film writer, director, and an activist. We thank you so much for coming on our program today, and we look forward to hearing so much more from you in the future.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.